Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Hi there, welcome. Build time, and we're going to be building the Scammell SV2S heavy breakdown tractor by IBG in 1/35th scale. Quickly before I get into this and start building, IBG are bringing out the Scammell tractor unit with the trailer. Slightly different to this one, will have a longer cab that could accommodate the actual tank crew with the trailer, which hopefully I will have in my greasy mitts very soon, but that's another story. So we're going to get on and get this one built, so I ain't going to do no more about this. Let's get in and let's get it built. Now, I've been a good boy, I've labelled all my sprues up. I have a highlighter as recommended by John Moore. This is a teddy bear when I pinch this off my granddaughter. So we're all set for action. Destructions, we'll get straight in. Now, first two pages on the destructions are all the sprue gate, or sprues should I say. I have noticed one thing. They've marked up if they're D, G and that, but they've not actually put the numbers on, which would have helped, but there you go, that's one of them things. So we'll start off with step one. That's probably the best place to start. So we've got the assembly of the wheels. I can't see no issues with them. We've got the assembly of a fuel tank. I can't see no problems with that. We've also got a bit of PE to make this basket up that goes somewhere. I'm not quite sure where that goes as yet. And also we've got the assembly of the engine. Now I'm going to assemble all these parts because they do it so there's all like subsections and then it all goes together on the frame all at once, which is pretty cool. The engine. Now I did notice that it's actually got these side panels, which I think I'm not going to put my side panels on. I'm going to leave them off so you can actually see the engine. So I'm going to do a bit of detailing on the engine. So with that, I'm going to get on now. I'm going to assemble steps 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then I'll come back to you and we'll have a look and see what we think. If there's any problems, I shall talk about them. I've assembled those parts. Fuel tank went together nicely, no problems at all. We have 7 wheels, nicely done. The only thing is that it would have been nice, they did come in parts, and it would have been nice if the centre would have been separate, but it's the whole wall of that tyre and the centre. That means you still got to paint it by hand, so I just assembled them. So we got 7 wheels all assembled, all nicely done, quite happy with that. We have the engine assembled. It's nicely detailed actually, not too much aggravation, went together nice and easy. And this storage basket, you only need tweezers to bend this PE with. Nice PE, bent very easily. I just used tweezers, no difficulties at all. So that is step 1, and in the great John Moore fashion I have marked off everything that I've done, so we can actually turn the page. So we're going to move on now to, sorry, I'm just taking the mickey out of John Moore, that's all. Move on to step 5, which are some more parts to go on to the engine. We've got the fan, we've got the diesel injectors, we've got the radiator to assemble, we've actually got the 4-wheel drive unit for the back, and I'm not quite sure what that's for. Yeah, that'll be for the steering, because we've got the little pivots on there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get all this assembled up, then I should come back to you and we'll have another look. Now I've completed steps 5, 6, 7 and 8. Now step 5 was, there was just a few more bits to actually go onto the engine, which I've done. I've been checking on some reference material, and there's still quite a bit of stuff to actually be fitted to this, so there's going to be a little bit of scratch building going on, so I can get the look that I want with the side covers off. But hey ho, that is in the future. Moving on, step 6 was the radiator, which has been assembled, no problems, all went together nicely. Step 7 was the assembly of the, well, I'll call it the 4-wheel drive unit for the rear end. All went together, no problems, no issues. And finally, step 8 was the assembly of the front steering rack. Went together, no problems at all. So, with all them bits done and all marked off, as you can see, John, and we move across to step 9. Now, step 9, 10, 11 and 12, I'm not going to do these all together because there's quite a lot going on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with step 9. I'm going to get this, all the chassis assembled, because there's quite a lot of bits and pieces. Then I'll come back to you and we'll have a little look at that before we move on to the next ones. Now, step 9 was the assembly of the chassis, and it's gone together really well. Got no complaints at all, except for these stupid little bits of PE, but there you go, that's the way it goes. They only give you PE for these parts, so you've got to put them on. So that's the chassis done, but before I do go any further, I've started doing a little bit of detailing. I don't know if I can show you that. Let's put that camera on auto. Let's see if I can bring that up. Now, I started to do a little bit of detailing on the engine. The bits I've put on are there, but probably not the right shape, but it gives an impression of the actual engine being detailed up. Still got all the pipes and that, but I'll be working on that off and on as we go through the build. So, what's next? Step 10 is the assembly of the towing hitch at the front. It's actually on a leaf spring. We've got quite a few bits of PE to go onto this, and the radiator as well to go onto the actual chassis. Now, the PE, so far I've only been using tweezers, which is a good thing because I don't like getting that bender out because it's just awkward. So I don't think these bits are going to need any bending at all, not by the look of it. So hopefully this should go together quite easily with the radiator, and we should end up with something looking like this. So I'm going to get that done, and then I'll come back to you. Now, step 10 is being completed. That's the assembly of all these little bits here with the radiator on the front. Quite fiddly, but we got there in the end. Now, moving on, we move on now to the back half, and there's a compressed air tank to go in, as you can see, and also we've got another spring with the tow eye, one small piece of PE, which I'm pleased about that, and we've got the I think they're like winches. They are, yeah, that's all to do with the main winch. And step 12 is the actual main winch. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assemble this up and get that done, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Now that little bit of back assembly has been done. I'm hoping that the camera can pick all that up. So all the rollers and pulleys have all been put in, so that's all nice and correct. I'll leave my hand there, and then we've actually got the main winch itself, which it does rotate. I don't think I'm going to have any need for it, but because it can be done, I did it. So we'll put them to one side and we'll move on now to step 13. Now step 13, 14, 15 and 16, we're getting to the point now where all these little sub-assemblies that we've actually made up earlier are all going to actually come onto the lower half, onto the chassis. We've got a few more bits to put on to the winch. This is the clutch mechanism, and also we've got the power off box that goes to the actual winch, and that's got to be made up. Then after that, as you can see, it's mainly putting the engine in, put the winch in, and all the bits that earlier we've made up actually start going on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the winch finished off and these boxes, these power boxes for the actual winch itself. I'll get all assembled, then I'll come back to you and we'll get the rest of it assembled up. Okay, we've completed the winch. If I can just hopefully the camera's going to focus there. The winch is all finished. It's got the clutch and all the other little bits and pieces on. We have the little drive box. That's all completed. Now the next few steps, all the parts are going to come together. So it's going to be the lower chassis, it's going to be the winch going to go on, the drive, the engine's going to go in, but I'm not going to glue the engine in because I still need to do some work on that. Also the front steering rack and the actual back end, the actual 4x4 drive power unit. So everything now is all going to be glued in, so that's going to be 15, 16, 17. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assemble all this up, and then I'll come back to you and we'll have a little look at it all assembled up, and then we'll move on to step 18. Now I've assembled step 15, which is the winch, the engine and the takeoff box. Also 16, which is the steering rack at the front. I've also assembled step 17, which was the bogie, well, the four-wheel drive unit, which we built earlier, and also I've put on the air tank and the little drive shaft, so we're all complete, and that's how it stands at the moment. Now I haven't glued the engine in. I will lift that out for the moment because I do have a bit of a cunning plan. So we can see that all assembled now, underneath, on the top, very well detailed. I'm quite pleased with it. But I do have a bit of a cunning plan. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to step 18, which is, I would call it a ballast box, which they used to have at the front with heavy weights in to counteract what they're towing. Now there's not many bits to it. There's a bit of PE, two sides and some supports, and also we've got parts there for the steering rack to go on, which I will put on. Now I'm going to get all that assembled up and fitted to it, but I'm going to put the wheels on, because the simple reason is this is the end of the chassis. So what I would like to do now is get this all assembled up and get it into paint, give it a prime and get the main coat onto it, so it's all done and it's all complete, so I can then move on and just add bits to it. So I'm going to get on with that, and I'll come back just before I take it in to get a coat of primer. Now step 18 was the assembly of this ballast box that they actually put weights in. Now it's all gone together lovely. The only one thing I will point out, they've got two PE 15s, which should be PE 16. They're just two cross members that go across the actual front, and if I turn the vehicle that way, hopefully the camera is going to play, but they've just marked them up as PE 15, but when you get to the fret it's PE 15 and PE 16, nothing too horrific. As you can see, all the boxes in, it's all done. I'm quite happy with that. Also you can see as well, if you can't, but hopefully you can, I've got the actual wheels on. All the wheels are on and it's ready now for a coat of paint. which that will be going off to the paint, but we'll be continuing on with the rest of the build. We move on now to step 19 and 20. Now this is the assembly of the winch that goes on the back. There's not too many parts in there, nice and straightforward. So I'm going to get this assembled. Oh yeah, there's one little bit of PE, a nice little plate that goes on the side telling you the manufacturers and when it was made. So I'm going to get this assembled, and then we'll have a little look at that. Now step 19 and 20 was the assembly of the little winch. I'm hoping the camera's going to play ball, but very nice, went together no problem. A little bit of PE plate on there. I don't think that's going to focus. There it is. It's a little plate saying manufacturer and when it was made. Very nice, very neat, nicely detailed. So that's the winch done. We'll put the winch up on the side there because there's bound to be more bits to assemble. Right, turning the page, we get on to the actual construction of the jib. Now we've got step 21. This is just one single part that's actually glued together, and step 22 is the two outside, as this one, as the actual main bit sits inside of that, so they can slide it up to adjust for what they're carrying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble 21, I'm going to assemble 22 and 23, because that's the whole of the jib assembled and ready for to be installed onto the vehicle. Because 24, which you can't see, which you can now, 24 is more to do with the actual bed and the support for the jib. So I'm going to get on and get this all assembled up, and I should be back with you shortly. Now this a bit of a close-up of the jib. Now I actually buggered up on this one. What happened was I was too busy watching a review on YouTube, and there's a little bit stuck out here that made up this little frame, which I snipped off. Very easily done. So what I did, I made it up with using a little bit of 0.4 wire, which I think looks pretty cool. And then when I actually came to put these little eyes on, they're that tiny. I just mullered them. I really did muller them. So what I did there was I got some 0.4 wire again, just virtually horseshoed it and replaced them. But besides my mess up, it went together nicely, nicely detailed. So enough of that, we'll move down to the destruction time. Now we've done 21, 22 and 23, that was the assembly of the jib, and that's complete. I'm quite happy with that. Now we're going to start building the actual bed now, for the actual this craney bit to go on to. Now I'm going to do step 24 and 25. Now it's just the assembly of a box, a storage box that actually goes underneath the deck, or the back bed should I say, and the back bed isn't consist of much. We've just got 1, 2, 3 support beams that sit underneath it, 2 running beams and an end, and then the piece that is actually made here. So I'm going to assemble that up and get it up to this, well, up to that stage, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, back to step 24 and 25, and that was the assembly of this piece of deck that actually supported the actual little crane. All went together really nicely actually, all fitted well. A lot of clean up though, because there was a lot of pins on it, so there was quite a bit of clean up. It did take a little bit of time, but all in all, very nice. Now moving on, step 26 and 27. Now we have the construction of another storage area on the side, and it's actually putting the crane in and the winch. So I should get these two parts done and finished off, and then we'll have a little look. Now 26 and 27 steps, this is what you end up with, and I've put it in close for the simple reason is I've put all that together and there isn't a gap anywhere. Everything fits bang on. Really chuffed with that. That really has come out well, because normally you have problems, especially when they're flat pieces and you've got two edges coming together, you normally get something of a gap, but that has gone together absolutely beautiful. So let us move on. Now moving on to step 28, which we've got another storage box. Nothing too fantastic, same as what we had on the other side, but slightly smaller. So I'm going to get on with that, get that done, and we'll take a little look at that in a second. Now that's step 28 completed, which was the other storage box on the other side of the vehicle. No complaints at all, everything went together really nice, no gaps, just a little bit of cleaning up. So we'll put that to one side for the second, and we'll turn the page. Now we'll get into the last few bits now of the actual, should I say, the back bed. Now what we got? We've got another storage box to go into this far corner. We've got a little bit of PE to do, and we've actually got the mud flaps at the rear to do. Once that's done, that whole section is completed, and that's what I love about this, because once that is completed I can get that into paint and we can carry on then with the actual cab itself. So I'm going to assemble these bits and pieces. There's not many bits there, and we'll have a look at that when it's all complete. Now that's the back half complete and finished off. I've put all the PE on, all the bits and pieces, handles, everything. Nothing has been missed off, and I think that looks pretty cool, that does. Build on that particular section, I couldn't fault it. Everything went together lovely. No gaps, there weren't no fit issues or nothing. It really did go together nice, and I'm quite happy. Now as you can see, it's on the chassis. The chassis has already been sprayed, so this now is going into paint. This is going into paint, and we're going to move on now with the cab. Now all the back's completed, and now we can move on to the cab. Now I'm going to have to do this in sections because there is so much going on each bit. Now we're going to start on the actual back of the cab, and we've got PE to go in to be bent up for the backs of the seats. We've also got a small slot here for 3 Lee Enfield rifles to go in. Now I've actually been looking at the Lee Enfield rifles they supply, and to be honest with you, they look rather soft, so I've got some other ones that in my spares box which are a lot better, so I'm going to use these ones instead of the ones that they actually supply. So we've got the Lee Enfield rifles to do. We've got more PE this side for the driver's seat, and we've actually got cupboards. Now what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to assemble all this up and I'm going to spray it. For the simple reason is I would like to do all the detailing as I go along. So I'm going to kick off. I'm going to get this piece all done and sorted. Maybe not the guns painted in for the next step, but they will be in before we actually finish. So I'm going to get that bit done, and we'll see what that looks like. Now step 31, that's all been assembled. As you can see, we've got the rifles in, all the little boxes. Now that's ready for paint, because I need to get these painted as I go along. Excuse the T-ring. Now moving on from that one, we move down now to the actual cab base. It's going to be a little bit fiddly. We've got some PE to bend here, some tiny bits to go in, gear knobs and levers and foot pedals, lots of little bits and pieces. So I'm going to get on with that, and I will be back with you very shortly. Now step 32. Quite a few little fiddly bits, as you can see, little bits of PE, things to be built up, but it's all done. That's got to go into paint now because I'm going to be moving on because I've got loads of bits and pieces to paint. So we'll go across to the next step 33. This is the bulkhead. Not too many bits to go on, but they are tiny. We've got some PE window openers. We've got the dashboard as such. Pedals, fire extinguisher. There's not too much to go on here, but I know these bits are very tiny. So I'm going to get on with that and we'll have a look at that. Okay, the bulkhead. There is some extremely tiny bits of PE, especially on the window, and I actually lost one, so there's only 3 on there and I couldn't find it. It just disappeared. But there you go, that's the way it goes. That's all done, all complete now. So what I'm actually going to do now is put this into paint, get all these bits painted up before we move on to the next section. Now I've got some of my parts painted up, a little bit of weathering done on the inside, means we can go on now to step, what's it, 34. I should probably get told off for putting red knobs on the end of the gear shift, but I thought it just looked cool, and I'll probably even get told off for the red fire extinguisher because I think they were probably metally silvery colour, but hey ho, I'm not bothered. So what we're going to do, we're going to move on now to step 34, and we're actually starting to assemble these bits and pieces that I've painted, and we're going to get some seats in. So I'm going to get these seats made up and get them all put into place. I'll probably just hand paint these, and when I've done that I shall come back to you. Okay, now step 24 is complete, and if I put the camera on autofocus, hopefully you can have a little look. There we go, camera's playing tonight. The seats are in. There's a few little bits and pieces I've just got to go in and touch up and weather the seats, and that will do, I think, because you're not really going to see a huge amount, but just to be able to see the basics, that's really all I'm interested in. It's on camera focus. Doesn't want to play. Okay, we'll put that down. So that step's finished. Now moving on to step 35. Now there isn't a great deal to do in step 35. It's just the steering column and the steering wheel, and I'm not looking forward to it. There's a tiny little hand throttle to go on, and the weights in the front. So I've cheated a little bit. I've already cleaned these up and got them painted, ready to go in. So I'm going to do 35, and also I'm going to move on to step 36 as well. Now 36 is basically just putting the back on the fuel tank, which we've already assembled. The side panel, we've got a little bit of PE to do there. I would say that's a sort of map pocket for the side of for the driver, and also we've got the engine hood. Now I'm not actually going to glue this down because I want to assemble it all, finish everything off, because I want to be able to spray take it off and spray it totally separate, because now I've got the chassis all painted and everything like that. So I'm going to do 35 and 36, and I shall be back with you shortly. Now steps 35 and 36. Now I've done all I need to be done on there. The only things I haven't put on are the windscreen wipers, which they're just a little bit too delicate to put on at the moment, and also the wing mirrors. Now I've left these off purposely because I always destroy them when I'm trying to weather and things like that. So I'm going to leave these right to the last. Well, should I say right to the last thing? They will be the last thing that goes on. Now the cab is now all completed. Hopefully the camera will play. Come on, camera. There we go. It's all completed. I've still got a few little bits and pieces to touch up in there, but nothing too horrific. And for people who are interested, I actually fixed all the cab together using glue and glaze, because I find it doesn't peel the paint off. It dries clear, and it's ideal if you get any little shiny bits, just a little tiny touch of matte varnish and it disappears. But very useful. So with that we can actually move on. So we're going to turn the page, and this is getting good because now we're coming to the last throws. Now my plan of action now is I'm not going to be putting these sides onto the engine. I'm leaving that off. We've already got the box made up, so that I'm going to fit that to the cab. Now my idea is to glue the back half to the cab and the hood to the cab as well, so this whole section will actually lift off. So that means I can finish all my spraying and weathering, and I can still get this underneath weathered up and made look nice. And if I really want to, I can take it off to show people. If not, it will sit on there just nice, because I have been looking at it and every bit does fit really nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get this all put together, and then I'll come back to you and we'll have a little look. And it's mainly then putting mud guards on and very small bits and pieces, and hopefully by the time we get this lot done I can do a reveal at the end of it so you can see what it looks like. Now we'll start with the chassis. Now I put the fuel tank on, just got to blow that in a bit later on, but what I want to try and do is, we've got the cab that sits on there like that. Then we have the back half. Get it around the right way, Simon, it might help. It sits on there when he gets it on. It sits tight against the actual cab. Now I've got this little cunning plan of gluing the cab to the back half, and also gluing the hood when he gets it in place, gluing the hood on as well, and making that whole bit like one unit, so you can actually lift the whole thing off. Now the only other one thing is we have a basket to go on this side which sits underneath the driver's seat, which we put that hood back on, the cab back on. Now that sits underneath there like that, but it's fixed to the cab and also it's fixed to the chassis. Now there is two little points there that we can glue into, if you can see that, but I think I might just have to make a little bracket or something to glue on the underside, so I don't have to glue it to the actual, can we see that? Because there is a little bit of a gap. So I'm just going to make a little bracket to glue on the underneath there, so that is all in one piece, so the whole lot can actually be lifted off. You don't need to do this, but I want to do it so I can do a little bit more weathering on the actual chassis, so you can lift it all off. Even though this is going on to the road to the Rhine, I do have a spot for this to be used, but it's nice to be able to do bits and pieces. Right, a quick tour before I go into finishing the paint and the weathering. Everything has been put on. Well, I can't say everything. The glass, the mirrors and the windscreen wipers haven't been put in because them sort of things I break off when I'm weathering, so I always leave them till the last thing. But everything else has been done. We've got mud guards on, we've got the whole lot all glued together, so it's all in one piece. The fit is fantastic, it really is a great fit. I did have to do a few slight alterations, well, make a few little brackets up, but I will show you them in a second. But everything is done. I've replaced the shovel. The shovel they supplied seemed very small to me, So I had a spare one, so I've replaced it with a slightly larger one. Now, the cab top isn't glued on because when this actually goes on to the road to the Rhine, this is going to go on to, I do want to put a driver in, so I've left the cab not glued so I can get a driver in because it needs to be posed on the actual diorama. The whole body actually does come off with a little bit of, there we go, spare wheel falls off, so the whole top comes off like so. I had to make some, if we can turn that over, I had to make some brackets up, as you can see, just on the inside to hold this box because it was just bouncing in the wind. And also I put one just inside the hood. Let's just move that round. I put one just inside the hood. All I used was the bits of PE that was left on the fret, so I didn't have to go out and get anything. And this goes on reasonably easy, like so, like that. And the alignment of everything, I'm really pleased with it, even the gap along the top of the bonnet. So there you go. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this all painted up, and our next clip will be the reveal of it. We'll take a final look now at the Scammell, and it's all completed to a point. I've not done all of the weathering as of yet because the simple reason is this is going on to the road to the Rhine, and I will do quite a bit of weathering when it's actually on the dyno to blend in with the actual dyno itself. Now, yes, I can say the road to the Rhine, yes, it's still on the back burner, but I'm still collecting and building vehicles to actually go on it, so that will be something in the future. But enough about that, more about the Scammell. It turned out really well. I'm really happy with it. It was a good kit, it went together well, lacking a few details though, but hey ho, we can't have everything. Now the top of the cab I still haven't fitted because I need to get a driver in at a later point, and he totally wrecks everything. So if you see a small gap there, that's the reason why. Now I did add a few extra little details to it. Start off with it was missing the sort of like indicator for the driver where the actual wheels are, so I put two of them on, which I'm quite happy with. I haven't done no detailing, extra detailing on the front. It was pretty well detailed at the front, to be quite honest with you. Moving on to the side, another thing they missed out was the cable that, well, not actually a cable, but a support that actually come down and supported the basket. That was missing, so I used a piece of wire and put that in. Nothing too big. Also, the spade that actually came with it, the shovel, was very small. It just didn't seem right to me, so I got one out of the spare box, and I'm quite happy with that. Paint wise, I used AK Olive Drab and Vallejo Black Brown for the camouflaging. Camouflaging was very easily done. I just sprayed it all one colour, then cut the Disney effect, I think that's what they call it, Disney camouflage, the bumpy one. So I just did that, stuck it on and resprayed it, so it all came out reasonably well and I'm quite happy with it. Other things that I did do, if we go around to the back, on the actual vehicle itself there is a panel that fits into here, but this kit didn't have one, so there's nowhere to actually put the hook. So what I actually did was I just pinched a cleat off, I think it was a tank or something, and I glued that to the back and we put the hook in. The hook isn't the original hook. I did make that one up because yet again that was very small and it didn't look right. Also I have replaced all the cable. They gave you a piece of string well, it actually wasn't even a piece of string, it was a piece of cotton. And when you put the hook and the cotton on, it really looked pathetic. It didn't look like it could lift anything. So I used some 0.2 cable, or wire should I say, 3 pieces, and twisted them up myself. And I made up the winch cable with that, which has turned out pretty well. I quite like it. That is about everything that I've added to it on its own. It is missing a couple of things. It's missing the tarp that drops down over the windows for winter time. Now, I've already ordered I think it's Thunder models. I'm going to have a bash at Thunder models. I'll give everybody a good chance. And that is the Scammell tank transporter, which hopefully I will have soon. And I'll do the same. I'll do a kit inbox review, a build, and a reveal on that as well, all in one video. Save all the messing about. So that is the Scammell, and that's about all I can really say about it, because it's been a real joy to build. I've really enjoyed it. And what I will do now, I'll leave you with a load of photographs. No, I won't. I've changed my mind. We won't. What we'll do, we'll try and split it in half, because if you remember in the build, we actually glued the back half to the front, and we glued the bonnet on so everything could be removed so you could see the chassis. Now, if you bear with me a second, and if I don't smash the camera up and everything else, there we go. I'll take that off. That's the bottom. Can we see? That's the bottom half, and it's all together. The basket and everything is all glued to it, leaving you just the chassis. So if you want to show people off, show it to people, you can. Extra work I did on the actual chassis was I just did a little bit of pipe work on the engine for the diesel injectors, and I put a few bits and pieces in just to indicate what should be there, the water pump and everything like that. It's still missing a cable for the actual drum to come out the back here, but I'm not going to do that, because when this goes on the road to the Rhine, it's going to be in a 5-to-1 pull position, which means the cable is going to be really stretched out to its maximum, actually pulling a vehicle out of a ditch or something like that. I've got it planned in my head, so you'll have to hang around the rest of the year and find out what's going on with that. But there we go. Now I can say with that, I can leave you with some close-up photographs, and with that I will also say hopefully we will see you on the next build.